Welcome back to Mud, Dust and Gears as we continue our coverage from the Molopo 250. The Vryburg Motor Club bringing you round one of the Regional Championship Series.
Go Team Reset!
With plenty of support for all of the crews out there on the track, it was now time to forget about the 42 Ks of warm-up, which was the 4x4 Mega World Prologue. Now it was go time, racing, time to get serious. 2 laps of 124 kilometers in the Northwest Province, and there had been plenty of rain in the build-up. Johan van Staden was out there on track seeing what he could do in the Renault Duster. The car has now seen a full season of development and stays with the Alf Renault Duster colours for 2018. He'd had an incredible run in time trial, putting himself on point and actually sharing the win with Werner Kennedy. But now it was race time and he wanted to get out and run clear air. Malcolm Koch, alongside with Sean van Staden, had also had a very strong run in their qualifying race in the T13 to see if they could be the first of the production vehicles. But of course, they are going to have to chase down hard to get onto the back end of the Renault Duster. It looks so strange, doesn't it, when you see sand and dust? But the standing water just showing how much rain came down in the weeks building up to this event, and mercifully so for our farmers out there in the northwest, getting a good sprinkling of their crops. Jacques van Tonder was seeing what he could do about being the first of the Fords as he ran the road to Dakar, T25 up the road. It was in good shape in the early laps at least. This young man and his young navigator Sammy Redlingace seem to have gelled quite well in the last couple of seasons, and they're figuring out how to get the best out of that Ford Ranger. Elsie de Jager and NM Killian driving out of the Graven Motorsport squad. This car is coming up to like a season and a half old now, but this pairing seem to be breathing new life into their Toyota Hilux in the S category 87. Almost unheard of at the latter part of last season, and coming out swinging. Everyone now knows their name and knows they're a threat every time they get behind the wheel. Good navigator and driver pairing, as well as good wheels underneath them. The Toyota Hilux would be a threat at this event. Yanni Visser and Chris Visser Jr., father and son pairing in the X category number 1 Toyota Hilux single cab. They have a very different driving style and a way of approaching the races. They attack where they can, they tiptoe where they have to, but they are ever so consistent in their lap times. And they'll be watching out to see the times tumble as they closed in on the end of lap number 1 of 2. Remember, 2 laps of 124 kilometers for the main race. Keith Totoy and Robbie Kutsia would see what they could do about winning out the A-Class special vehicles in their BAT Spec 2, running in the Scania and White Star colors. This pairing know exactly how to get the job done, and Keith has that very, very relaxed style of driving. Doesn't really plant it on the gas, sometimes rolls through the corners one gear higher than the other guys. It's all about conservation and saving the gearbox, tires and all the running gear on the car. Keith, in other words, plays the long game of cross-country racing. Survival. Kutsia, an experienced rally and off-road navigator as well, knows how to get the most out of his drivers. Lars van Veek and Swaits Moret. White colours always shows me that it's the early part of the season before sponsors and different kind of liveries come onto the cars. The D number 1, still though the car to beat in the D category for production vehicles. The stop and goes here, well attended, well managed by our marshals from the Vryburg Motor Club, and also where a lot of the spectators would hang out to show their support for their families and drivers out there on the track. The early part of the track was still a little bit tight. It did open up as you got out after the 50k marker. Jaco and Johan Visser in their Toyota Hilux, the D15, trying to see what they could get done and try and squeak their way inside of a top 10 overall. But of course, their real goal was a top 3 in the D class. Bouncing and bucking their way into the braking markers. Wheels have to stop just enough before they cross the road and are clear. Remember, we're working, or racing should I say, through working farms, so it's all about safety, and that's why the marshals are there, not just to stop the racing and slow the speed, but it's all about safety. After you cross the road, drop the hammer. Etienne Nienaber and Scott Jennings, one of the best prepped Land Cruisers I have ever seen as well. They've got that high pipe, which gives it almost like a quad sound. And it's not just all about old schools. This is one of the modern shape Toyota Land Cruisers racing in the D category, and may go on to defeat some of the more modern shaped Hiluxes, Ford Rangers and the like that race in the D category. Watch this space, because the Land Cruiser was really on the move. Also, why a couple of guys still choose to race in the Land Cruiser is because it does sit, and the cab sits a little bit higher than the Hilux models, even on the single cab or double cabs. So it gives you a slightly better vantage point, and sometimes that can be the advantage to see the bumps and the cautions a little bit earlier or sooner than the rest of the categories. Piet and Benjamin Coetzee in the X8, now really in the groove. Didn't have the best run in the prologue by their own high standards, but lap 1 of the first lap of 124 kilometers was all out attack to see if they could make up a little bit of lost time. No one really lost too much time, I'll be very honest, between the fastest and the slowest on the 42Ks across most of the categories, especially in the Class Ds and X categories. The guys were within minutes, maybe a minute and a half of each other. So out onto the big loops, it was going to be very, very close numbers come the end of the first lap, where we'd really get a taste to see who was climbing the ladder and who was on point to lead going out from the second lap. Macanetti and Nsheki had a good job of it in the 42K 4x4 Mega World Prologue, and the Bat Spec 2 P22 was looking to see what they could do in the special vehicle format. Remember, there was going to be a new champion in the special vehicles as well. In the absence of last season's championship pairing of Andrew and Zelma Beer, it was all to play for. Andrew and Zelma stepping out of the championship to concentrate on business for the 2018 season, meaning there was going to be gaps and new names coming forward. A name coming forward was the D33 of Francois van der Walt and Gerry Prinsloo as we went on board with the pairing halfway through lap number 1 of the Toyota Hilux pairing, and you can see a little bit of helping hands there. Gear shifting and navigating. Gerry Prinsloo really is the man with the plan. On board to see how tight it can be. Elbows in through some of those gates. And once you are through, then it is back on the gas. That's what it's like for regional championship off-road racing. Freiburg, so often the opening round of our championships throughout the seasons. And once again, a big high five and well done to the Freiburg Motor Club, along with Max Petroleum, Andre Koch and Sien, Midas Freiburg and Off-Road Alley for bringing us all of this incredible racing action. But for now, it was all about everyone closing in on the end of lap number 1 and getting themselves ready for lap number 2. Van der Walt and Prinsloo were on a charge. Stay with us after the break as we see how the rest of the action unfolds.